Welcome back to Community Conversations. I'm your host, Steve Mantis, with a bit of a cold. And my guest today is Ian Kaufman, the president of the Lakehead University Student Union. Welcome back. So we were just talking about the connections into the community. And you mentioned a number that, I'm on the far side of university, but once you start talking about it, I go, yeah, that's right. And oh my gosh, think about all the pubs, all the music that we have here. There's all these components that really add to it. What are people thinking about in the future? How can we strengthen those links? I mean, my days in university, is the 60s. And we thought we were the head of social change and lobbying for peace and for civil rights and all this good stuff. And can you guys kind of lead us into the next a few decades here and make it a better place? What does that look like?
I think we're trying to, totally. And I think, when you look at what social transformations youth and students were able to accomplish in previous decades, whether it's, people think of the 60s and 70s, but I think it's beyond that. Obviously in the 60s and 70s, from civil rights to environmental issues and anti-war, I think there was a lot, and I think that stuff had a big effect. But then also, you look into the 80s and 90s and a lot of the identity issues, and I think a lot of the acceptance of, LGBTQ individuals, and a lot of the progress we've seen on race relations and, indigenous, non-indigenous relations, a lot of that stuff has come from youth and come from campuses in a lot of ways. And I think, students are able to push those conversations forward. I think we're still doing that. It might not be quite as loud as it was back in the 60s, but you'll see students taking the lead on issues like sexual violence. We've had a lot of conversations about that over the last year, and our Gender Issues Center that's run through the Student Union in particular takes the lead on that. They run the Take Back the Night March. That's, I think, a community fixture at this point. I think students are also taking the lead on climate change. It's increasingly, I think, the issue of our generation. It really is climate change, and saying this is a justice issue, and it's also just a pragmatic issue about societal survival, right? And a lot of students are acting on those two issues in particular, I think, is what I've seen over the last year.
Well, let's explore that one on climate change.
For sure,
So what do you see happening within the student community that's going to make an impact? What's up?
Well, so there's a few things that are exciting. I think there's a growing desire from students to do stuff in their own lives to be more sustainable and live in a way that is sustainable, that's not going to wreck our planet, to be blunt about it. So we've seen a lot of desire for workshops on sustainable living, promoting local food, promoting a bit more self-sufficiency. But then there's also a growing recognition that I think that's not enough, that individual action isn't enough. So one of the campaigns I'm the most excited about personally is a campaign called Fossil Free Lakehead. And that's part of a global divestment campaign, asking universities, pension funds, municipalities, and other groups to divest, pull their investments out of the fossil fuel industry. And that's in recognition that the business model we're working with, in terms of how we're burning fossil fuels, if we continue with that status quo, we're leaving a planet that's not acceptable, that's dangerous, and dangerous especially for people who are already disadvantaged in the global south. So students at Lakehead have been pushing hard for the university to pull its money out of the fossil fuel industry in recognition that we can't continue supporting this business model. And that's something I'm passionate about, and it's something quite a few other students are passionate about as well. We've made some pretty cool progress on it as well.
So if the university pulls its 100 million, billion, whatever it is, out of fossil fuels, where do they put it?
Well, so that's a good question. I think for now we're just saying the important thing is the symbolic statement that the business model of the fossil fuel companies is not sustainable and it's not acceptable. Obviously, we'd like to see reinvestment in alternative technologies and renewable energy, stuff like that. But right now what we're asking for is the symbolic aspect, because divestment as a strategy really isn't an economic strategy. a lot of people think of anti-apartheid when they think of divestments, and there's a lot of convincing research saying the economic impact of divestment from South African companies was basically zilch. But the political impact was huge, right? And it forced a major change. And the reason that we're pushing for divestment is to send a message to companies and to government that they have to change the business model. So hopefully seeing carbon pricing, limits on emissions, serious international, climate change negotiations, which we haven't seen from our governments yet. And I think we're seeing a move towards that now. I mean, Justin Trudeau has just promised to create a carbon cost across the country. So we're seeing it move towards what we want to see and what we need to see. I mean, if our generation and our children are going to be living on a healthy planet, but we need to push it to happen more quickly, I think. Yeah.
Well, speaking of push, I'm going to push some more.
Sure.
Because I personally agree as well. We need to look at different ways of doing business. But we also need some of those solutions.
Yep.
And once again, I'm kind of going, I'm an old man, I don't know if I can even conceptualize maybe some of the solutions. I think about some. I'm so happy some of my kids are into alternative energy, both engineers and are working in that area.
For sure.
But they say, geez, that's only making an impact of 2 or 3% in our energy consumption. And so is there work being done on different business models that maybe look different, that are still going to be able to support the university?
Yeah.
Because we want that university to be vibrant.
Yeah.
But doing it in a way that's going to make us all healthy rather than risk kind of long-term health effects for all of us.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, I think many of the solutions are out there. I think they need support. I think if you look at what a lot of European countries are doing, they're proving that it is possible to base your economy largely on renewable energy. It's not perfect, but they've made some real strides. And I think there's no argument to say we can't do a lot more than we're doing right now. Obviously, it's a huge societal challenge to transition from one energy source to another. I mean, it's a big thing, and I don't think we're saying it's easy, but I think, we don't really have a choice, for one thing, and we have seen the way forward with countries like Norway and Germany, and even the States is increasingly ahead of Canada by quite a ways in terms of renewable energy. The UK, I mean, this is not necessarily even a conversation about the future. It's a conversation about what's happening in other places. So there's no shortage of alternatives. And I think, a university like Lakehead could play a leadership role in that. And moreover, we need the government to play a leadership role in supporting those technologies. And Ontario has tried to do that with the Green Energy and Economy Act. Unfortunately, there's some conflicts with NAFTA and other kind of free trade agreements that have, I think, held that back. But I definitely think the alternatives are out there to a great degree. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you very much. We need to take a short break. Please stay with us. We'll be right back.